Hi, my name's John and I want to share my story about the lessons I learned when I sold my business. If you're like me, you might be thinking of selling your business, but you don't know how much it's worth. Well, I was wondering the same thing. So let me share my story and it will hopefully give you an idea of what your business is worth too. I started out by asking what you might call my professional advisors, my accountant, my lawyer. I even asked a business broker. The problem is they all charged me an absolute fortune, but they all came back with completely different answers. Someone once told me it's only worth what someone is willing to pay, so that gave me an idea. I decided to ask someone that buys businesses all the time and see how he valued the business. Now this is a bit complicated, so bear with me. The valuation is made up of three core parts. The first part is profit. Actually, that's adjusted profit. The next part is what's called the multiple, which we'll come back to in a minute. And then the final part is related to the balance sheet and how much debt you have in the business. Now coming back to the adjusted profit. To cut a long story short, you start with the profit figure. Accountants call this EBITDA. Add your own salary back to this figure and then subtract what the equivalent cost would be to employ someone doing your job. Then we do this calculation for the last 3 years to get an average. So let me take you through my own example. Last year my business made 300,000 profit. I was paid 20,000 salary, so I add that back in, making the profit figure 320,000. To replace myself with an equivalent level employee is going to cost me 70,000. So I need to subtract that from the new profit figure. That means the adjusted profit figure is 250,000. Now to keep things simple, let's just say my business was the exact same for the previous 3 years. This means the first part of the valuation is complete, 250,000. Now let's look at the next section. The multiple. Now this multiple is dictated by risk and liquidity. A small business is considered more risky than, say, a large public company, so it will have a much lower multiple. Also, small businesses are hard to buy and sell. If an investor puts money into my business, it might be years before they can get their money back out. If it were a public company, the investor could buy and sell shares in the same day, which means that multiple increases to reflect that. So you might be wondering, well, how do I know what that multiple should be? And that's where my business buyer friend can help. You see, there's a company called BizBuySell. They analyse thousands of business sales across all industries. By looking at their report, we can see that the average small business was sold at 2.12 times multiple. By the way, if you want to see a copy of the report, let me know and I'll send it across to you. So now that we have that multiple, we can plug that into our valuation. So that's 250,000 profit times 2.12 multiple, and that gives us 530,000. The final part to this calculation is to look at the balance sheet. In my business, the company had a £100,000 mortgage. So to find the value of the shares, we take that 100,000 debt and subtract it from the earlier figure of 530,000. So that means the business is worth around 430,000. It's important to understand this also has to reflect the business having a good working capital. Now for my business, I wanted to sell it, but I figured, well, I need to have enough money to last my retirement, as well as pay off the mortgage on my own house. So whilst I wanted to sell the business, 430,000 wasn't enough to cover those future living expenses. This led me to feel really frustrated, and so I spoke to my business buyer friend to see if he had any suggestions of how we could increase that valuation. You know what he told me? Yes sir, there is. There's 2 ways you can increase it. And so that's what I'll tell you about in my next video. The 2 ways you can increase the value of your company.